A BBC investigation published this week has found something remarkable about how babies in England are born. 1 in 4, 26% of babies are born through emergency C-section. That's 8% rise in the past 5 years alone, and experts don't really know why. But here's the question I want to explore. Beyond the headline, what does research really tell us about caesarean births? When is it the right call? And what does science say about the biological difference that it creates for your baby? Welcome back, I'm Joanna, I'm a mum to two. I make short videos on research, data, academic papers on various parenting topics, anything from pregnancy, education, nursery, breastfeeding, behaviour, anything that I just find interesting because I want to make informed decisions and ideally be a better parent. If you like that idea, please do hit like and subscribe. I'd love to have you around. Anyway, back to it. So first of all, the BBC findings. They are striking. Emergency C-sections have gone from 18% to 26% of all births in England over 5 years, while vaginal births without instruments have fallen from 53% to 43%, 10% decline. Professor Marion Knight, the director of the National Perinatal Epidemiology Unit, calls this a total change in how women give birth in England, one that hasn't been replicated in other European countries. Her team compared C-section rates across 42 countries. In 2020, England was ranked 14. So what's driving this? Experts don't have a single answer. Some have told the BBC that they believe that there's a culture of fear in maternity units, which is shaped by a series of high-profile maternity scandals in Morecambe Bay, East Kent and Shrewsbury. These cases may be contributing, but the logic is stark. Legal cases typically question why caesareans weren't done in the first place, not why were they. Why weren't they done and why weren't they done sooner? Doctors are rarely criticised for performing one too early. Critically, despite the sharp rise in emergency C-sections, stillbirth and neonatal mortality rates are still remaining pretty unchanged. Professor Shakila Thangarantina at the University of Liverpool noted that the rise in C-sections isn't accompanied by better outcomes, and that warrants serious scrutiny. And there's another layer that's worth flagging. While the national average for emergency C-sections is 1 in 4, it rises to about 1 in 3 for Black and Asian women, and that disparity is something that needs urgent investigation. Now, let's look at the science, and I want to be really careful. What I'm going to say, I don't mean to offend. What we're talking about is what the research is saying. None of this is an argument against C-sections. They are needed. Emergency C-sections save lives. If you have had one, it's not a criticism of your birth. It's just science, and we're going to talk about what science has found. When a baby is born vaginally, it passes through the birth canal and it's colonised by mother's vaginal and gut bacteria. This microbial handover is one that's understood to be one of the most biologically significant events in early life. Research shows that caesarean C-section disrupts this mother to neonate transmission of specific microbial strains and the linked immune system priming and benefits that go with it. The first 1,000 days of a child's life represent a critical period of health and development. Disruptions to the establishment of this microbiome have been linked to conditions like hay fever, asthma, eczema, obesity and type 2 diabetes. A systematic review and a meta-analysis published in Pediatrics pulled together all of the best available science on this, and it found that caesarean sections were associated with a 30% increased risk of respiratory tract infections, 23% risk of asthma and 35% increase of obesity in offspring. And a more recent comprehensive 2024 review published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology found that there are elevated risks of hay fever, atopic dermatitis, eczema, food allergies in children that are born through C-section compared to those that are born vaginally. Now, it's important to say that these are associations, not certainties. A lot of this is correlation, not causation. There are population level risk increases, but not individual outcomes. Many children that are born through C-section have no health implications at all, so it's not saying that if you have an emergency C-section, your child is going to be affected by that. And it also doesn't mean that if they do have asthma or allergies, that is the reason why per se. Now, some of the increased risk may be explained by health conditions that made a C-section necessary in the first place, so that confounding factor there is pretty hard to unpick. But the consistency of these findings across multiple large studies is something that researchers are taking seriously. The leading biological explanation for all of this is, at the moment, the microbiome disruption. Research tracking infants through the first year of their life found that there are several gut microbiome differences between those that are born through C-section and those that are born vaginally. And this persists all the way to 12 months, and this isn't just the first few days of life impact. So if you've had a C-section or you're preparing for one, what does the evidence say? First of all, breastfeed if you can. This is one of the most evidence-backed based ways that you can help colonise your baby's gut with beneficial bacteria. For instance, Bifidobacterium infantis. This is one of my last videos that's on my channel, so you can go and have a look at that as well. Breast milk actively supports the microbiome in various ways that formula just cannot fully replicate. Another thing that people do, and you could do, vaginal seeding. This is basically a swab of the mother's vaginal fluid is applied to the newborn after a C-section, something you might have heard of before. The science is quite promising, but it's still emerging. A 2024 systematic review found that vaginal seeding facilitates partial restoration of the key gut microbial communities in C-section born infants, but it doesn't fully replicate that natural microbial transfer through a vaginal birth. And it says that standardised protocols are still needed. So if you're considering it, talk to your midwife or your doctor. It's something you might want to risk assess if that's something that you're thinking about doing. Skin to skin contact immediately after birth also matters. There's a microbial transfer that happens there too. Your skin bacteria colonises your babies as well, and it also supports bonding and breastfeeding initiation. So push for this even in theatre if you can. And avoid any unnecessary antibiotics in early infancy if you can as well. This will just further disrupt any fragile early life microbiome. And finally, the research is clear that around age 3, many of the microbiome differences in C-section and vaginally born babies actually does reduce substantially. So the window for intervention is real, but the capacity for recovery is also real too. So what this BBC data tells us is that we are living through a significant and largely unexplained shift in how babies in England are born, potentially due to all the maternity crises that we are seeing at the moment. We're not quite sure why. But the science on what this means for babies and their long-term health is still developing. It's pointing consistently in a direction that means that these decisions do matter and that parents therefore deserve honest, clear information about the risk and implication of having a C-section. There is also hope. There are things that you can do if you are in that situation yourself, and the idea that there is a gut restoration over years of early infancy, that's also something that we can hang on to as well. If you found this useful, please do hit like and subscribe. If you had a C-section, planned or emergency, I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. If you like the idea of these sorts of videos, please do hit subscribe. I'd love to have you follow along, and I'll see you for another video. See you later.